This is Saul Luckman, and I am happy to be joined today by April Novoa. Is that how you like to pronounce your last name?
Yes, that's correct, Novoa.
And
Thank
I'll be introducing her in a second. This is Conversations on Saul Luckman Uncensored. And if you want to support my work, please do a free subscription over at saulluckman.substack.com. I would
Uncensored.
really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And there's lots of good content there. And then I also encourage you. I like to do this at the beginning because sometimes when it comes later, then everyone's like, "How do I contact someone?" Please subscribe to April's channel, aprilnovoa.substack.com. She has a wonderful blog called Observations on the Way. And I thought I would kind of switch things out a little bit and just read a few of her titles, recent titles from her blog, and then give a little introduction. So this will give you a flavor of where she's coming from. She has several posts that I really have enjoyed. I've shared a lot of her work on my notes. If you follow my notes, are you mentally saturated? I think that's very topical at the moment. She has a really fascinating, kind of hard hitting piece on tribalism, which is something I've been writing about some lately. And then a drop of Tao, and we're going to be going into more of what that might mean here. Also, how to train the mind. The most important question. That's a very philosophical little piece. And then exhaustion is not a virtue. Here. Completely agree with that. April is the author of Love Is, Fear Is Not, and she's co-author of Stop Overworking and Start Overflowing. She worked in the medical field for over a decade and then transitioned to alternative healthcare. She's been a neuromuscular therapist, a doula, Reiki master, and herbalist for over 25 years, and a lot of those things kind of interconnect. But that's a lot of material you had to digest to be able to do those things well. She's also a human design specialist and a gene keys guide. And given my work in DNA activation and sound healing, that's a very great and wonderful connection. Currently, she's homesteading and pursuing certification to become a Qigong instructor. And I did mucho Qigong for a very long time in my life. April considers herself a consciousness explorer and cultivator of the Tao. Her interests span everything from the metaphysical to Eastern mysticism and spirituality. So, April, welcome to Conversations on Saul Luckman Uncensored.
Thank you so much, Saul, for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I appreciate your work. I've read, I think, pretty much everything you've written. I like books, so I have them on my bookshelf.
You
um,
read the hard copies, the paperbacks,
yeah,
most
yeah.
of them?
I'm kind of old school that way. I like to have something to hold into my hands, So enjoyed them immensely. Very inspiring.
Well, you've been a wonderful supporter in so many ways, and I just want to just express my gratitude for that. I mean, you've been just fantastic. So know that I see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and all that you do in your work so much. Thank you.
So obviously you have a long twisting life path, as many of us do, who end up in the metaphysical and spiritual mystical realms.
Yes.
It seems like it's a prerequisite to go all over the place, and carry little pieces with us as we go forward. Did anything in particular in your journey? Does anything stand out as a real watershed turning point type of moment?
Um, I had a lot of metaphysical experiences as a child, things that I saw and heard and freaked adults out and learned real quick that, I better, conform and keep my mouth shut about stuff like that. But the curiosity never left me. And so I ventured into spirituality via Christianity and then ended up in a cult for a while. I
Yeah.
guess you'd say it was a high control religion for a good long time, and kind of had that, Joseph Campbell experience, hero's journey, where I came to a point where I didn't know what I believed about anything anymore, and just kind of opened up the doors to kind of start looking at everything, and I'm an experimenter by nature, but I've kinda put that on the back shelf for many years just to conform to, what I felt like my family and culture and society expected of me, and that was just to don't question, but questioning's kind of my nature, and I feel like I've embraced that after a lot of years of, trying to shut that down, so, um, yeah, so
Right.
there's been a lot of moments, but, I can remember as a child, I was like the why kid, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
the one you're like, "Stop asking so many questions," but that's kinda how I've always been, and I kind of embrace that about myself now and pursue it.
I would say if there's been a common denominator in all the guests I've had on this show, that's it right there. They were the Y kid.
Yeah, 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 and I think we're born in needing to do that, we should do that. I think my major big thing that I wanna get across in everything that I write is there is nothing wrong with you. You weren't born in sin or broken or, flawed, and you don't need fixing. What you do need to do is return to you.
Mm,
That is the one thing that I hope comes across in everything that I write is that you're not something to be fixed or repaired. You need to return to your original nature, your li is what it's called in Chinese, your original virtue. Um And you had that all along, but, we lose it through conditioning. And so I touch on conditioning a lot in the things that I write because I want people to understand that, a lot of our thoughts are not our thoughts, um, they're formed by what we've been around growing up or, the country we live in or the schools we attend or, we just kind of take things in because of this fundamental, misunderstanding from the time we're really little that something needs to be fixed or repaired about us.
mhm, mhm. I could not agree more. Obviously, since you've been following my work for a while, you know that I've been writing and publishing a lot about shame and trauma and that kind of thing, and working with like Emma Lyons doing an article. And
Yes.
I just couldn't agree with you more. This is a key teaching, uh, key lesson that culturally, if we don't get, we will never heal as a culture. And that is the idea that, there's nothing wrong with us, and there's really, in a way, nothing wrong with anyone. And I know when I was growing up and my mother would say that to me, it made me so angry, like when I was in my 20s, because I wanted to be, right. And I wanted to be able to judge people and to shame them if necessary. And I felt, this was my righteous anger and I was a warrior and that kind of thing. And I understand where people are coming from with that. For example, in the social justice movement, or across the political divide, they, in like the fundamentalist camp, both of them are coming from a similar perspective that I do understand. I've been there and I've done that. I just have grown out of it, and it
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't ask to grow out of it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be superior to all of these people who've not yet outgrown this. No, it's like it dawned on me over time after I kept making the same mistakes and repeating the same patterns and getting involved in what I like to call the loosh fest, the
Mhm.
energy extraction, the harvest of the world. It finally dawned on me that that's just not the way forward.
Yeah, it's rooted in reactivity and resistance. And I think it's a natural response, though, to having been told that what you feel is not worthy of expression or that, you just need to keep your mouth shut. I think being told that that's the reaction, to kind of like want to come up against that and fight. But I think what you find is that it's exhausting. Uh, Trying to fight things and resist the natural flow of life, whether you like it or you don't like it, is always going to be a way to lose energy. And I think it takes a while, because I remember being, a fundamentalist and, really fighting the good fight, or thought I was. And just being so exhausted and worn out. Like, I understand now that I was literally leaking energy from that act of always, like, coming up against, pushing against. But it took me a lot of years to kind of burn myself out before I figured it out.
Mm, yes, absolutely, and I think a lot of people have gone down this path, this whole idea that, we have to hit a kind of wall that break through is kind of the other side of the coin from breakdown, you know?
Yeah.
That's a tough lesson. That happened in my health, when I
Yeah.
had my health crisis back in my 20s, and it's happened in other ways, professionally and, interpersonally, so the only way I've ever been able to get myself out of those kinds of pickles is to stop resisting and learn how to go with, not exactly go with the flow, but stop, pause, listen long enough to understand what I was being told. What was I being shown? I was being offered something, even if it wasn't what I thought I wanted. But what doorways are opening? What paths are branching out of this moment? And which one looks the best? If when you're just wanting to be where you were and you can't be anymore, all you can really do is be frustrated and exhausted.
Well, frustration is a really a wonderful thing. I will early in my explorations, I worked with Mondo Zen and Renzai Zen. And my teachers at the time, Zen, by the way, comes out of Taoism, hence that's how I got to Taoism.
Mm,
But
mm,
at the time would very much on purpose frustrate you because it would reveal where your it would reveal to you your ego. It would reveal to you your shadows. And so they would purposely create dialogues that would be frustrating for you. And it was but encourage you to really sit with that and look within and okay, what's going on here that I'm reacting this way. And it's a powerful tool if you can. It's about slowing down and really being able to sit with that emotion without just like taking action. um Slowing down is a really powerful practice. Pausing is a very powerful practice. And that's kind of, what I learned from my time studying with Zen masters is that, you know, a lot of it looks kind of, I don't know, sneaky or tricky. And it is, but it's really to provoke this response so that it kind of almost snaps you out of it. Like you can see yourself, you can see what is the ego, what is it doing? You can see your hurts, your wounds, and how you might be reacting from those hurt places. It's a powerful practice. So I think every negative emotion that we have, if we can slow it down and really sit with it for a while, it has a lot to tell us, and it's very unique. It's not a one size fits all deal. I mean, everybody's experiences and perspectives and hurts are all unique to them.
Right. You mentioned, obviously this is so resonant with me in terms of some of the stuff I've been writing about for a while, having to do with the importance of procrastination, the power of silence, this kind of thing. So you're speaking my language for sure. And I'm glad that
Mhm.
you pointed out that Zen comes out of Taoism. When I was doing Qigong, this was again back in the day when I was ill and I was trying to find a way to get my health back, I began intensively studying qigong as a way to build up my energy, and it did help. It absolutely helped. It
Mhm.
probably saved my life. And I paired that, having just come out of graduate school and been reading a lot of postmodernist types of works and that sort of thing, with immersing myself for quite a while in Red Pine's translation of the Tao Te Ching.
Okay.
And I think that's the one that I was using at the time. That's the name that comes to mind. It was masterful. It was
Yes.
absolutely incredible. And years later, I finally threw it away. Um, when I looked through it, and I had so many notes, I could barely read the text anymore. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. And then I did something very Taoist. I just threw it away.
Yeah, exactly. When the teaching's over, you kind of move on from it because now it's not on paper, it's in you.
Right, right, I got
Mhm.
it, and it's like,
Yep.
"Okay, I don't have to revisit that. If I need to, I'll buy another copy or maybe a different translation, I don't know." But so when you say the word Tao, Tao. What? How do you define it? And I know it is a word that defies easy definition, but how do you define it?
The way.
The way, yeah,
Yeah, that's why my Substack is called Observations on the Way.
of course, yes.
Yeah, because, it's that's it's very difficult to define. In fact, the first line basically says it's impossible to define. But I mean,
Yes.
that was my experience spiritually too, that it what I when I had my NDE, my experience of whatever reality is was something that was undefinable. So, it very much confirmed to me that this was a direction that I needed to walk in.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I wrote this book that you're aware of, Get Out of Here Alive, and
Yes.
and over I say the only way out is in. And
Mhm.
I I had so much resonance with the idea of the Tao, which I don't really reference in the book because that would have involved, a whole other series of chapters or a part to even make those connections. But just in my heart, I knew what I was describing was the Tao, and it was
Yeah.
following the way in the way that I understand it.
Yes. Yeah, because it's a direct experience. That was the other thing, I spent years studying the Bible in Hebrew and, Greek and Aramaic and, you know, doing all these things, and it was all an outward, it was a way to reach whatever God is, creator is, outward, outward, seeking it outside of myself. And the Tao isn't like that. Like it is you. It is in you. It's much more, it's larger than any human definition. And that's what really kind of attracted me to it, because I have done all the external, wild goose chases trying to figure it out. And I never found it anywhere but within myself and in my connection with nature.
Mm, mm. I love that. I love that. And one of the words that I've sometimes used just in my own processor, if I wanted an easy, extremely rough synonym, was just the word consciousness. But that comes with all kinds of baggage, and
Yeah.
and 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 really you have to understand it, that word as the entire full spectrum of what that could possibly mean.
Yeah.
Anywhere, anytime, in any universe, in any place. So it is the creative consciousness itself, that the aspect of it's the way that opens up as it's becoming itself, and as you are also creating it in a kind of beautiful synergy and in harmony, hopefully. Does that make any sense to you at
It
all?
makes a lot of sense because it's all happening now. It's not it's, when mankind gets involved in these things, all of a sudden they're measuring everything, and quantifying it and numbering it and putting letters behind it. And they're trying to uh, use the mind to understand these things. And it can't be done. It can't be done. Not really.
Not
Uh,
really.
it has to be experienced, and that's what you want, really, because that was my frustration in religion, is that I wanted to have all these experiences that I was reading about, but I wasn't having them. And I wasn't having them is because I was outsourcing. I was outsourcing everything I knew to a book, to a guru, to a teacher, to, you name it. And I was not experiencing it. I was just reading about and studying other people's experiences, but the Tao is experiential and it's moment to moment and it can't really be quantified. And you have to be comfortable with a certain level of uncertainty around that. And that's very difficult for the human mind.
There's a Japanese concept I imagine you're familiar with that is quite related. It almost sounds like a kind of poor man's version of the Tao, wabi sabi.
Yes, yes,
Do you know that? So it's kind of like everything is imperfect, impermanent. It is the process itself that is where we find truth and beauty.
yes,
Do you see a connection there between those concepts?
absolutely. I think there's definitely a connection. Western thought is not comfortable with things not being quantified and measured. And Eastern thought, a lot of it, with the exception of maybe Confucianism, which is a whole other rabbit hole, um, is comfortable with not really being able to grasp anything, having to, you know, just being in the moment, experiencing it, and then letting it go. This is not comfortable for the Western mind, really.
Very, very true. Trey, who's been such a supporter of this channel, he said Nahual. He had just a little question. That whole shamanistic concept of the unfolding dream that surrounds us, or the mystery. Could that be a kind of rough synonym for the Tao? And I would say probably yes, because my understanding of the Nahual is that it it even though shamanism tends to separate the Nahual of the mystery and the tonal of what we think of as our reality, really the Nahual gives encircles and creates the tonal. And it creates the tonal very briefly as we experience it. But if you look away from the tonal, it turns back into the Nahual and you're just nowhere.
You can't hold on to it. You
Right.
just be okay with just allowing the grace of that moment to be what it is. You can't really grasp it. It really doesn't make sense to grasp it, you know? You dare to enjoy it and to fully experience it. If you're grasping it, you're not fully experiencing it. And it's interesting you bring up shamanism because Taoism, in its origins, was shamanistic, and
Absolutely.
it was passed down by, you know, it was an oral tradition. So it didn't actually become like a religion until very recently, and, even now, it's like there's just no real solid structure to it, and that's one of the things I think I like best about it, is that the impetus is on me, or whomever, to cultivate that relationship with the Tao. It's not something that it can be done for me.
Yeah, you bring that up. There's in some of my study into inner alchemy. I've occasionally run across a lot of Taoist concepts as well, or concepts that seem to be the exact same concept in the context of Taoism, or
Mhm.
other related Eastern religions, like the idea of a jade body that we could somehow achieve and therefore become immortal. That is basically an Eastern description of the philosopher's stone that you can create inside your body and grant
That
yourself immortality.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover, and when I see crossovers like that, I'm like, "There's something there." When you see these early traditions cross over in some really fundamental and important ways, there's something really valid there, something that is, worth noticing.
Oh yeah,
And so
I'm so glad you feel that way. I mean, the comparatist approach can be very helpful. It's not scientific, but it really helps where there's smoke, there's fire.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They've just done, I look at Taoism as human, a human system, a technology, if
Mm,
you will. And it's a kind human effort, basically. It doesn't claim to be much more than that. And that's again, that puts it on us to have our own journey. But it's a technology that, there's you can take it as a spiritual walk, or you can do the art of living, which is just applying certain principles to have a better life. There's no mandates, there's no real structure, there's no, you know, it's very fluid and open to however it is you want to use it and cultivate it, become intimate with it or not. Like there's just a lot of freedom in that. And the early Taoists, they were not proselytizing. They were going to downtown and sometimes they teach, but mostly they were like healing people because they practiced out, as you know, alchemy uh, practices, longevity practices, immersion
mhm.
practices. That's all part of it as well. But they weren't like looking to create a movement. It was only when the warring states happened that you had this kind of like institutionalized movement to make to make it something accessible to people. But when you do that, then it almost kind of poisons the well just a little bit.
Mhm.
Then you get, you get religion. So,
It's true, and and particularly in Taoism, with the Tao Te Ching being the centerpiece, the text that goes
mhm,
with that. They're at odds a lot of the time because there are many passages in the Tao Te Ching, and there are many translations, so it's hard to know what people have read exactly, and some of them are quite different. But generally speaking, I would say there are at least a dozen places in the text that point out that this can't be a religion, or if you're practicing it as a religion, you're doing it wrong.
yeah,
Would you
yes.
agree? There's a lot of focus on that in the at least in very subtle ways.
I very much feel that way. I don't criticize temple Taoists. There's a lot of um, you know, cultural parts of that. So I don't criticize temple Taoists, but I don't consider that to be for me. I'm much more of probably somewhere between a philosophical Taoist and a spiritual Taoist. I love the text, but I wouldn't say I'm a textualist either, because again, I feel like it's something it's like an action. It's something that you're doing. It's not so much, that it's that the Tao Te Ching or Zhuangzi is something that you're commanded or mandated to do. There's a lot of, and really Taoism doesn't look at the books like Christians look at the Bible at all. They're not like an authoritative. They're
Mm.
one. I enjoy reading them, and I love that. Schwanza's hilarious. It's a lot of comical writings in there, and then
Right, right.
love Lao Tzu, and he wrote, if indeed he was for real.
Yeah,
You
right,
know?
right.
So, yeah, there's just no, like, this is our doctrine, and there's none of that, which is great. But, I don't think I could ever be like a temple Taoist just because I didn't grow up in that culture. And, and again, I think you're right. I think if you really do look at the Tao Te Ching, it's almost kind of speaking against that kind of, um, coming together in that way. So,
Yeah, I mean, I really don't. I don't consider myself a Taoist, and probably a lot of Taoists don't. That's
no,
the funny thing.
no,
But so I really would not criticize anyone, however they're approaching it. I was just pointing out that in the text, the text is full of like little like red flags for taking this too seriously
yeah,
and too literally. You
yes.
know,
Well, and there's the whole identification thing, which is a really slippery slope, and you're kind of dipping into, the ego, and we see that a lot just in our own culture of I'm a this, I'm a that. Today I'm this, today I'm that. And it's like, are you really? I mean, you're not limited to a label. And I think that's the important point. You're not limited. You're you're part of the Tao. Everything's part of the Tao. So you're not like super special, but you're important because you're part of the Tao. And the Tao loves all. It's impartial. It's not does not show favoritism to the little bird out your window, you know? Uh, so we're all kind of equal, not fair, because fair is another thing, but equal, in terms of our values.
for a lot of people, the concept of Taoism is very foreign, literally and also conceptually, and there is that east-west divide thing going on.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to point out one. There's if you're an American, someone living in this neck of the woods, or even European, there are very strong connections in Romanticism and particularly Transcendentalism between Taoism and a certain kind of Western thought. And probably one of the biggest figures making that connection in the West was Henry David Thoreau. Are you
Mhm.
aware of that? Because here you are, like homesteading. I would assume he has
Oh, yeah.
meant something to you in your journey.
Definitely an inspiration. I'm definitely very pro human freedom and human sovereignty, being able to make choices in your own life, having agency in your own life. And I think he was very much about that. I very much appreciate his work. Absolutely. There's definitely a crossover because the Taoists look pretty anarchist sometimes. In what
Yeah.
they
Yeah, right, right. And even behind the theory of transcendentalism, you have this idea of the oversoul, right? Which in some ways is like the Tao. It's this amorphous creative principle in some interpretations. Not
Yes.
It's not like a god. It's like a moving consciousness. It's maybe more like the Christian idea of God moves in mysterious ways.
Hmm.
And so uh, you can really connect East and West, threading from transcendentalism and to and through romanticism all the way over to Taoism, which I as another as a comparatist, and I like to use that language because that's something I'm very well trained in. It just makes it all seem more valid to me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like the true things, the good things, the worthy things are things we all share within ourselves. And, if we forgot, we might have forgotten them, but you see these crossovers and okay, that's like you said, where there's smoke, there's fire. Look there, you're going to find something there. And throw's definitely one of those that I would put in that category. Of course, it was, my entry point was Alan Watts, like everybody, you know, and his work. But I think he did a decent job given the date and age that he was working with this, trying to communicate it. I'm not sure he always did, but I feel like he did what he could with what he had and what would be permitted at that time. Um, but he was definitely a crossover. And then of course I found the Ching, which is the Book of Changes, which is probably one of the oldest forms of divination on planet Earth. I found that and found that in both Human Design and Gene Keys. So I just everywhere I went, it just was the Tao, the Tao, the Tao, and so that's when I kind of decided, all right, I'm going to really dive in and learn about this, do some deep study, and I did, and it's been wonderful. It really is more about letting go of things than it is taking more things on, which is kind of a new thing for me in my life because I've always searched and hustled to get more and more and more knowledge, understanding. With the Tao, it's more, you let go of something every day. And it's very, it's a very wonderful experience.
Now, when you practice that letting go, do you do it in different ways? Do you have any kind of ritual that you use? And what territory does that cover for you?
Well, I begin with meditation. That is something that I do daily. When we have the physical, which is the martial, which you're aware of because you've done qigong. We have different spheres. I studied with the four spheres, and but the Tao sphere meditation, I do a set of invocations, which in Taoism you don't beg or ask for something, you thank. So you go into everything with gratitude because like the trajectory if I talk of your life and your mind is where you're pointing it. So if you're if you're not focusing on gratitude and things that are positive in your life, you're going to go towards whatever it is you're focusing on. So we begin our day with five positives, and then we go into a gratitude invocation, and then we're going into a blessing invocation because we want to bless others. And then we go into an abundance invocation, and this is something we do on the daily. So we have the meditation, the invocations, and then the martial sphere, which is qigong, is something that I practice because the body's really important. I also do yoga. Anything you can do to become more embodied because that's where you're living this experience. That's kind of my practice. And sometimes it's also like a big one, like being in nature, taking a day where you shut everything out and you just go be in nature. You watch the birds, you look at the squirrels, you walk the paths, you notice the flowers, you take time to notice the earth around you. So that's kind of my practice, you know.
Beautiful. So how much time, just out of curiosity, for myself and maybe for other people, do you spend in the I hate to use the word ritual, but for lack of a better word, in the ritualistic aspect of your practice?
So the invocations probably take me less than 30 minutes. You know, part of the meditation too, and I failed to mention this, is that when you're meditating, never down yourself for your mind traveling. That's just what the mind does. But what that will do is tell you where you are holding attachments. So if my mind is like going, s- towards thinking about a bill I have to pay or something, then I'm recognizing that's a gift. I'm recognizing that okay, I'm attached and consumed by this fear of not being able to pay this bill. Or wherever the mind goes, you allow it to go there, but you make note of it because that's where you're seeing where you have attachments, and you can deal with those in what we call truth telling, which for me is just journaling. This is how I'm feeling. um, I'm upset about this, concerned about this, and just kind of getting that out, just being very honest about it, and then going into your invocations and probably about 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes meditation, maybe 30 minutes involved in invocation, and I mean, to simplify it, you don't even have to really call it that. Just think of 5 positive things, list 18 things you're grateful for. Who do you want to bless and how do you want to bless them? When you were meditating, what came up for you? Write that down. And so you're processing this stuff at the start of the day. So when you go forth, you're not carrying it around all day. Life is a lot less heavy.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. And then you're doing obviously there's a good bit of natural interface just built into your lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I live in the country, so it's easier for me to kind of step outside and be with my animals or in my garden or walk down the road. But if you have a park nearby, you could go to a park and walk. You could go out and sit on your porch and just watch the sun rise or set. There's so much that's accessible to us that we've lost connection with. And as humans, we are part of nature, and we have quickly over the last few decades lost touch with that. And it's so healing to put your feet on the earth and spend time in nature because you're part of it. And if you're always in a building or in front of a screen or at the job site or whatever, you lose touch with that, and that's part of what makes you whole as a human. So you need to connect with what you are, which is nature.
Well, I love that. For me, for a number of years now, my major interface has been surfing, body surfing, that kind of,
Yeah,
and that's to me is a kind of like I call it the church of surfing. You just get out in it and you're just healed by it in many ways. In fact, I learned years ago that there were these doctors in France who were prescribing surfing for all of these ailments, including things like arthritis and things that you would assume these people couldn't even do it. But he was basically telling them to get in the water and splash around. And the more they did that, the better they felt. They got more flexibility and strength and mobility. And before long, some of them ended up just surfing,
yeah,
being able to either learn it or go back to it. Someone said,
yeah,
Juliet said, I love swimming. Me too. Just the same thing. All that,
yeah.
that waterness. I just love that piece. But I also love the woods and when I do get to spend time hiking and that kind of thing, I've always enjoyed that.
I grew up surfing in the Pacific Ocean, and so I'm landlocked here. So, but I do get to enjoy nature, and I know even in the Scandinavian countries they prescribe forest bathing, and it's a powerful practice just to have your body on the earth. The vehicle that you're driving around in is made of earth, and so it I believe that it is very healing. It realigns you, and so I really encourage people, please, even if it's, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, make an effort to just kind of get out there and breathe some fresh air and touch the ground and notice what's around you.
Yeah, the noticing piece, to actually pause, just actually leave your phone at home, just go even for 5 minutes. You may have to slowly slowly wean yourself off of having to have it on your person, but, go for a walk or go surfing or something where the phone is just not an option,
Yes.
and you'll be okay, I promise you.
Noticing is a very important Taoist practice because it brings you into the present moment. It brings you and it everything that happened before is gonna happen, an hour from now goes away if you will stop and notice. Noticing's a really important thing. And not and if you feel like you have to respond to whatever it is you're noticing, slowing down, taking your time and sitting with it before you do is a really important thing.
Absolutely. Trey was saying living in the forest and being around the trees has been beyond healing. Yeah, he sends me pictures of his woods, and it's just amazing. It's just like, wow, I'm gonna go there.
Yeah.
I you know I so agree in the importance of every bit of this. In fact, I mean, one of the main things I think people could do to make themselves happier, to have better relationships, better families, and better communities and beyond is to really reconnect in some fundamental way with nature on a daily or nearly daily basis. And it doesn't even have to be that long. It's not like you have to go for a 10-mile hike. You can spend 5 or 10 minutes just, like you said, breathing, touching the ground, maybe going barefoot, whatever you can do to then be able to center yourself in that present moment awareness, because that also really helps you understand what is meant by the power of now, or only the now exists, or there is no past and future. That's what you can feel so easily in nature.
That's right, and it's just a step away from all of us. Just step outside, a foot, 2 feet. It's right there, so take advantage of it. I think it lowers your cortisol. I know it, helps with blood pressure. I'm sure there's a gazillion things it does, for you, so, yes, absolutely, please do that for yourself and do it for others because I find too that when I step outside and kind of calm down and connect with the earth, I come back to relationships and situations with more clarity and a willingness to be patient and kind to those around me. Whereas if I'm just immediately reacting to things, it's problematic. So taking that pause in nature, it will calm things down and it'll bring you clarity. If you don't have clarity in the moment, just give it some time and you will. And nature is a great way to find it.
Doing a kind of nature pause or a nature timeout is a really good personal mental health technique. It's also really great for relationships and parenting.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes we need a timeout. I raised 4 children, and there were many times I was giving the timeout, but I actually was the one that really needed the timeout for sure.
And putting it in play with, like, instead of like punishing a kid, go to your room or whatever, like make them go out into the woods, or
Yeah.
something like that. Go into the backyard, be there for a little while. It changes the energy completely.
It does, it does. In Taoism, one of the things they do it once a year, whenever, is they do called a biguan, and that means it literally means shutting the gates. And so you're shutting out the world and you're going off to connect with nature. It's a practice. It's something that they do intentionally so that they can recenter themselves and reset themselves and connect with the Tao.
I love that. I love that. Sign me up. That'd be really
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
It sounds like be gone.
Be gone. That's even better.
Be
Be
gone.
gone. I'll
But
be
it's
gone
biguan.
for a little
Yes,
while.
biguan. Yeah.
That's great. That's fantastic. So, back to your writing and your blog. I know that you've published a book and you've co-authored a book. Do you have any vision for your articles coming together in a book one of these days? Because I think it's kind of automatic, just from my perspective, that it would be pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I've had people suggest that I kinda string them all together in a book, and I was working on a book. I've completed 16 chapters, but I kinda shelved it for a while. Just the demands that we've had around here have kinda prevented me from continuing with that, but I do plan to get back to that. So, yeah, there's some things that are stewing that, I hope to put out there eventually for sure.
Oh, good. That makes me happy. I know in my experience, when I was a younger writer, I did the whole practice of kind of making myself write, even when I didn't feel like writing or didn't even have anything to say, as if that could somehow help me. And mostly it was just a total waste of time. As
Mhm.
I've gotten older, and maybe a little tiny bit wiser, I've let the ideas come to me. And when they're not there, I don't write. I just don't write.
Yeah.
It's just a waste. So it's really interesting as I've done more of that kind of Taoist approach to writing, if you want to kind of put that in quotes, where I've just let the Tao come to me instead of chasing the Tao, which is, an
Yeah.
exercise in futility, basically.
It'll keep
Um,
running.
you it's amazing how the Tao keeps showing up, and it does it in this kind of lightning way. Like,
Mhm.
when I went into writing Get Out of Here Alive last year before last, in the fall, like 2 falls ago, I had some articles and some bits and pieces that went into the book in altered forms lying around. So it wasn't like I had a blank slate and I just did this, but I wrote that book in 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah. That's how my first, full book was. It wrote me. I always say it wrote me because it had to come out.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
I say the same thing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
wrote me.
I think I really, can relate to that because I kinda for a long time was just always producing throughout my life and practicing Wu Wei, which is, part of Taoist practice. It means effortless action, is flowing with the flow, with with the
Yes.
energies. And if you try to force it, it is an act it is an act of futility. I mean, it really you just kinda wind up hitting a brick wall over and over again. So I've really been working hard not to give into that temptation of just doing it for the sake of doing it, but doing it because I feel some inspiration. Sometimes it comes at 2 o'clock in the morning, which is not real convenient. But when that happens, I try to get up real quick and make a note and then go back to sleep, tell my mind we can wait on this till tomorrow. But when it comes and you just kind of have to flow with it.
Absolutely. I've written about Wu Wei, in a kind of punning way, as, getting your woo, your whatever your ideas are out of your own way.
Yes. Yeah,
You have to get out of your way to do Wu Wei.
100%. You can't you have if otherwise you're leaking energy. You're not as effective. So a lot of times people don't realize like if you're trying to push through or you're trying to force something to happen, you're actually leaking energy and it's leaving you weaker and less able to do what you want to do. So it's really counterintuitive. But if you'll work with the energy as it comes and move with it, it's not like a lot of people think Wu Wei is just like doing nothing. It's not. It's just doing what I don't know how to phrase this, but moving with the energy as opposed to trying to force or fight something. Effortless action.
Yeah, that was really well stated. I totally agree, and it does sound kind of philosophical until you've experienced it, maybe more than once, and it's almost something you can repeat. So now, like, I just finished writing another book, and the same thing happened again, and I did this one in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
So I'm going to be making that announcement in the near future. It's a follow up to the Inner Alchemy book that I just wrote. So I'm really excited about it because it just came through with such force, but
Yeah.
not that I was forcing it, but that's that Wu Wei thing again.
Moving through
Things
you.
open up and you could just feel it. I had this phrase in my mind that I'm bringing the wood. I'm bringing the wood. And it
Yeah.
just felt like I was bringing the wood, but it wasn't really me in some ways. It was just that thing coming through me. It was bringing the wood through me.
Yes. Yeah. It's wild. I try to not get frustrated when I'm in those dry spells, but I know it's for a reason. And I'm like, okay, we're going to slow down now. But when it hits, it really does. And then you just are a conduit for it flowing through. And it's a beautiful experience. It's like surfing. It's
It
just
is.
surfing. Yeah. And be like water,
Absolutely.
right?
That's so
And
perfect.
yeah, it is like surfing. I mean, if you will exhaust yourself trying to, force a wave. You're not going to be able to do that. It's going to come when it comes. And when it does, then be skillful and ride it, you know?
Absolutely, it's really great. I came up with a there's a section in the book where I describe how to do what I'm calling, dream surfing,
Okay.
and so it's very appropriate to this discussion. I won't spill the beans, but it's pretty cool, and it's very aligned with everything we've been talking about.
I'm excited to read it. I have to tell you, Callie the Destroyer was amazing. They're all great. But I was, with everything we were going through at the time, the timing was perfect because I was a kind of an outlier with everything, and so it just kind of was very inspiring and encouraging and beautiful. I just really enjoyed it. Snooze as well. Like I said, I've got them on my bookshelf, and I'm always telling people to please pick up your books because they're wonderful.
I really, really appreciate that. Those books have a special place in my heart. Snooze was another one of those funny things that just kind of showed up, and then Callie did kind of the same thing, although that was a little more energized. But they both came about in a similar process to what I've been describing. So I felt there was something true about that. There was a
Yeah.
real energy there, and I just stuck with it. And just allowed the story that I had been kind of presented to just write itself through me without, I don't know, without getting overly self-critical
Analytical.
or analytical. It's really because, that whole analysis through paralysis thing
Oh,
can somehow set up shop with writers in particular. Recently
yes.
on my Substack, I shared a quote by Bukowski that kind of speaks to this. Is this idea that I'm trying to pull up the quote. It's hilarious, and people thought it was so funny, but it's a quote I was aware of. It's just hilarious. It's let's see. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Charles Bukowski, great writer. The
Mhm.
problem with the world is that the intelligent people are full of doubts, while the stupid ones are full of confidence.
It's true. Well, we overthink everything, and I think there's also this, like, you're imagining too, what is this is am I getting this across to people? Are they understanding? And we overanalyze. My husband gave me the best advice. He's a great editor, and I really need it sometimes. And he said, just write. Don't worry about spelling errors. Don't worry about grammar, because when you overthink it, like, you're out of the flow. So don't overthink it. Just let it flow through you and see what happens. And you can go back and change things or fix things or whatever. Thank God for Grammarly, right? I mean, it's there,
Yeah, right. Well,
but
thank you for saying that, because that's, I get a sense of that from your writing, that you are just kind of shooting from the hip, and that's really easy to read, and it's very satisfying, and there's a level of familiarity and trust when you encounter that kind of prose. So whatever you're doing, I say keep doing it.
I try to just tell stories in a sense of my own shortcomings and struggles and the things that I've learned, from being on this earth for almost 60 years, what I have faced and overcome, and sometimes taken me a long time to overcome. I just try to be real with people, and I feel like people can kind of relate to that. Um, because, we're all learning, and this is not the easiest place sometimes to learn. So it's really, I think, a wonderful thing when you can look at what someone's trying to express and really feel that, oh, they're just a person like me, and they're just trying to get through it. They're learning. We're all learning.
Ain't it the truth? That's really well and truly stated. Yes. In the interest of time, we're at about an hour. I wanted to go ahead and open up the chat to any questions you might have for April or myself, or both of us.
I'm gonna put my
And if there are no questions, that's fine, because we have a lot. I have a feeling, April, and I could talk for a long time. Thank you, Theo. Yes, keep being real. Absolutely. Yeah. So please let me remind you to go to aprilnovoa.substack.com. That's her observations on the way. Uh, her blog there. Please subscribe, support her. And my world is saulluckman.substack.com. So if you haven't subscribed to me, I would really appreciate that also. And I've got a lot going on, uh, lots of different things happening on my blog. So don't be overwhelmed by it. If you go there, there's a little tab in the upper right part that says premium content or something like that, and you can go and just figure out what is of interest to you. Trey said, "Great exchange between you both."
Aw, thank you.
Appreciate that, Trey. Trey, by the way, is was he shared some of his photos. He used to live down in the islands, and or
Oh,
in the no, I won't say the islands necessarily, but he is an amazing, absolutely amazing surfer.
oh, wow. I was good at 16, but it's been a long time.
What state were you in? He says Costa Rica.
Okay, I was on the coast of Los Angeles area in California,
Cool.
uh, Torrance and Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a beautiful place down there.
yeah.
Those are some real waves.
Oh, yeah, especially in the spring.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, you have your blog. What else are you doing not on the homestead, out in the world? Because we talked about some of your process at home, and now you're writing and Substack. But what else do you do that works for you from a keeping it real Taoist type of perspective?
Hmm. Well, I practice a lot of inquiry with myself, and I spend time just really looking at where my thoughts are going and what emotions are coming up for me. So, I mean, just I'm a work in progress. I see others and my relationship to them as something reflective and a gift, and so I spend a lot of time in my own personal journaling, just kind of, making note of that and working through things. And yeah, and in addition to my spiritual practices with my invocations and meditation, yoga, Qigong, I'm studying to become a Qigong instructor. So I'm learning a lot about moving qi through the body. And I've seen a tremendous amount of benefits physically from that practice. I'm still doing body work, so not very often. I don't see as many people as I used to. So I do that. And yeah, homesteading takes up a lot of time. We're raising produce and chickens. So
Absolutely. Do you also have pets?
I do. I have a 14-year-old dog I don't think he'll ever die. He's just incredibly healthy. He's the
It,
healthiest dog I've ever owned. White teeth, just, you know, a bit of a
amazing.
yeah, he's a bit of a nut, but
So we do have a question. Someone is asking, "What is karma to you?"
So Taoist karma is very different than Buddhist karma, or what the world thinks of karma, Buddhist karma. Taoist karma is actually power, and it's something that there's a positive, a neutral, and a negative karma. So there's three different categories of karma, and karma in Taoism, if it's positive karma, well, even if it's negative karma, it gives you agency and choice. If you don't have a lot of karma, uh, you actually don't have a lot of agency and choice. It's power. So it's not karma in the sense of how it is in Buddhism. So it's not necessarily a negative cause and effect thing. Although there is a cause and effect happening, it is kind of like fuel. Does that make sense? It's really different.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to make the case that translation from Taoism into Buddhism, and even the Hinduism connection there as well. So
Mhm.
from one kind of karma to another kind of karma, it's about a 180-degree turn
Yeah,
made on that
very,
concept.
very
And
different.
I always see it as basically the degradation of the shamanic Taoism into the controlling psyop religion of
Yeah,
Buddhism. Just not to put too fine a point on it, but that's kind of how I see. Uh,
it's
so I see original karma is very much like this concept of personal power that I write about.
Yeah.
But then it got
100%.
completely turned on its head so that we are, you know, forever in debt in a debtor system in this world cult that we live in.
It becomes punishment, and that's not how it's intended in Taoism. It's not punishment, it's agency. And if you have positive karma, you have agency, you have choice, you have choice structure. Whereas if you don't have a lot of karma, well, you may not have choice structure, but you don't really, it's just kind of more neutral. And so it's looked at as power. So it's definitely been watered down, and it's also taken on this moralism, a moralistic kind of feel to it, in both certain Eastern traditions and also in the West.
So we have another question. What is the dark night of the soul in terms of the Tao or Taoism? Is that a necessary process for individuation?
I don't know that you could say that Lao Tzu kind of had that when he was like done with society and left. You could say he was kind of going through that process of like individuating from this, what we would call the social mind, when he left. But Taoism doesn't necessarily have like a dark night of the soul per se. I think it is uh, that suffering is part of this world, and that we do go through tough things that can ultimately transform us. But it really has a lot to do with our perspective of them and the story we make out of it. And so I would say in Taoism, you're empowered to do that, but I wouldn't say that you could draw a direct comparison between the two necessarily.
And typically, my understanding is that the dark night of the soul is a Western Christian concept.
Mhm. Yes, yeah.
Theo asked, "Do either of you have an opinion on ocean water healing compared to lake water?" And he's curious about salt or salt water.
Hmm. That's an interesting question. I don't have anything to back it up with, but I would say ocean water would probably be more healing than lake water just because of pollution. I think ocean has a more sophisticated way of cleaning things, but most
Yeah,
of the time, that would be my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I mean, just intuitively, I would agree with you, but I don't have the science to back it up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, we came out of this. This is uh, maybe the last topic that we could chat about before maybe we'll maybe doing it again one of these days. But we came out of the whole pandemic, and then we've had a couple things going on recently on the world stage that have a lot of people upset. Do you have any commentary on where you think the world is going? I know a lot of people
Mhm.
that's really on their mind, and I mean, I have my own thoughts, but I would love to hear yours.
Hmm. I think it's going to do what it always does. I feel like, to those of us that are younger, or for those, I'm not younger, but those that are younger, I I kind of think that they don't have enough. We kind of lived in a bubble for a long time where, things were relatively calm. I mean, we had problems, but we've moved into a time of kind of crisis. And I feel like the world has cycles. This kind of branches off into Gene Keys and human design, but we're finishing a cycle called the cross of planning. There's these 400-year cycles, and each of those crosses, it has to do with particular frequencies and attributes of that frequency. Uh, the cross of planning was all about industrialization, control. We're moving into another cross, which is much more about an individuation. But when something dies or goes away, it's very chaotic and it's ugly, But and then something else is born, and this is a cycle that continues. I think this is just another cycle. So I'm not apocalyptic about it or feeling bad about it. I think it's just we're going through a change, and change is hard, and there's a lot of adjustment that has to happen when we have change. So that's a whole other subject, and going down the gene keys and human design comparison, rabbit hole on that. But I do think that we've had it very good for a long time, so it's very difficult to imagine our world shifting in such a radical way. But I would say that it's not bad or good, it's probably a combination of both, it's just going to be different, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, I recently shared a meme because I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and it was on this subject. It's how to enjoy your cup of tea while the world falls apart around you.
I love that.
And
Just
step one is the trick is to remember that the world has always been falling
always,
apart around you. And
always.
and then step two is cheers.
Yeah, enjoy. Just enjoy each day and don't get caught up in it. Uh, you know, it's okay to notice. Noticing's good, but don't feel like, it's doomsday because it's not. The world has always, always gone through these cycles, and we're just are going to witness. We're of the generation of people that are going to witness one, and that's okay. We'll get through it. We will.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really agree with that. And the other thing I would say is that this idea of Taoist karma or personal power
Hmm.
is something worth putting time and energy into because it gives you agency. It makes
Yes.
it so that you're not just a victim all of the time to these
Right.
outer circumstances, feeling like, well, we can't really control the relationship between these two countries and blah, blah, blah. And all of the fear mongering, all of the psyops, everything that's being run to distract us and make us fearful and take our energy. You can kind of turn that on its head with this Taoist notion of karma and take back your agency and your power. And what this allows you to do is to harness the focus of your attention or your imagination with a power source that allows you to manifest a different reality, at least in your corner of the world.
100%. You said that beautifully. You accept what's before you, but learn to move with the energies. If you go into a video game, you go into play. You're not there to, necessarily change the game, but you can change yourself in that. You can level up. You can make really skillful, smart moves within it, and you can increase your energy level and have a lot more agency and choice in your life. But, I my one of my teachers tells a story, and sorry to vegans, but, if a guy is going hunting and he misses the rabbit, if he sits down on a rock and cries about missing the rabbit, he starves that day. So, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
if life isn't is not the shape you'd like it to be, you can learn to work within that shape, and that's
Oh, I
that's
love that.
powerful. That's powerful.
Absolutely. It's really, really powerful. And you can take this into other directions, for example, learning to deal with to acquire and process and store and work with this energy, this personal power. I mean, chi is a function of this, all of this, basically. So you
Yeah.
get more chi, you get more healing energy. You can apply that internally to healing, or you can manifest things, or you can use it to build your jade body or your philosopher's stone and pursue, getting out of the matrix one of these days, which is a whole other topic. But
Mhm.
April, this has been great. I feel like we are at a moment where if we open one more door, we're going to be talking for another half hour and we'll overstay our welcome with our listeners. But this was fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone who tuned in to watch and for your questions, and thank you for subscribing and following. I'm very grateful and very honored. Thank you so much, and Saul, this has been great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's been my pleasure and my honor. I would ask everybody out there to please like this, this interview. It really helps people who need that social proof, whatever you want to call it, to tune in, because I think there have been some powerful messages that April's shared in this interview, and I want to thank her for that. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in, for joining us, for giving us the precious gift of your time and attention. And until the next time.
Thank you.